Hi everyone, my name is Caroline and I'm the Partnership Director here at Enactus UK. This video is going to be a little bit of an introduction into this year's Asda Partner Competition. So let's get started. So the Asda Partner Competition is an amazing opportunity for you to apply for and get funding for your project, but also to gain some amazing mentoring from Asda colleagues. So hopefully you'll have seen this website before and that's how you've landed on this video. But the Asda Partner Competition is all about how you are using a community space or a space in your local community to house your project in. Now, this could be a space that we could say is in Asda stores. So you might have seen that in some of the larger areas, some of the larger Asdas, they have really big meeting rooms. Now, this would be a great place if you're looking to have a workshop or to really find a place for your beneficiaries to meet for your project. But they're also looking for projects that have looking for green spaces. For example, if you have a field that you need to conduct, I don't know, football, mentoring. I know Sheffield on Target would be a great example for that. So if you don't know what that project is, have a look because it'll provide you with some great resources. Now, I'll let you read the challenge and the opportunity in your own time, but I did want to kind of bring your attention straight through to the project resources. So I've given you some examples here about how I found social enterprises that would be great to apply for this competition if they were Enactus projects. I'd really encourage you to have a look at those before starting your application because it'll help you give an insight into what is possible between these Asda store spaces and the greenfield spaces. Okay, before we move on to the application, I wanted to talk through the process and the timeline. So the process first is to do a written application on a Google form. You can click on any of the buttons on the Asda Partner Competition page website for you to find out how to click on that and the process. The next stage is from your applications, we will shortlist 10 projects that Asda thinks has the most potential and will be able to provide the most support for. If you are selected to go into those, you'll then be invited to Asda House in Leeds on the 2nd of December. And this is really going to be a day for you to come with your project idea, come with your empathy map and your needs assessment, because this is when we'll be able to really accelerate your project impact and provide you with a whole day of support. And just by attending that event, if you are shortlisted, you will receive seed funding for your project. So it's definitely worth applying to this competition because the next stage, it gets very exciting. From that day, Asda will then see what the projects are performing like, which your group is doing, how receptive you are to the feedback that they're giving. They'll then identify a top 5. Now, those top 5s will be in with an even bigger chance to win funding. So not only will you receive that initial seed funding, you'll then move on to the next stage, which is in January. So in January, we'll be picking the top 5 teams who will then present the impact that they've made with their project and how they've moved forward from that initial meeting on the 2nd of December to the last week in January, when you'll present this to Asda judges, and they will then decide to give you additional funding and additional support. So it really is all to play for, and I would definitely encourage you to apply. Now, one of the questions that I've had from students before is, do I need to have project impact to apply for this competition? Absolutely not. It's not a requirement. Asda are looking for those new stage, those early stage projects, as well as existing projects. The main thing that they're looking for is that you've done a really detailed needs assessment, which we'll go on to shortly, but also you've thought about how you can use Asda store spaces or green spaces in your local community for your project to develop. That's kind of the key takeaway from this video, is how you're portraying that. So let's move on to the application. If you have applied to our partner competitions before, you'll have noticed this application is a little bit different. And that's because we know that projects will be a little bit different because of the way that this partner competition works. So as always, we need your email address, your contact details, so we can connect you if you make it to the next stage. But we'll also need to know your beneficiary group. So this is really a quick, easy simple way that you can explain who exactly it is that your project is looking to help. Okay, the next step is the empathy map. So this is slightly different. And this is something that Asda would really like to see that you've thought about what your beneficiary needs. So have you put yourself in their shoes? Have you thought about what they think, what they see, what they say? So we really want you to have thought about this project in terms of you've identified that social need. Now, what is it that your beneficiary is truly thinking about? So again, bullet points are more than welcome. We just want to know that you've thought about your project and who you're helping, which will take you to the next step. So you've thought about who it is that your beneficiary is, what they're thinking and feeling. Now you need to conduct some secondary research. So what is the wider context of this need? Like, have you sought out statistics around the issue? Have you thought about looking at the Office of National Statistics? Have you seen any really good reputable sources that has solidified the fact that there is a need for what your project will be and that group that you're working with? So we've given you a couple of examples there. Make sure you have a look at those. And then the next one is primary research. So again, you've done that initial research, you found the bigger, wider context. Now, have you managed to conduct primary research, and have you managed to make plans to do that? So like, think about, like, who is it that you've spoken to? Like, do you know somebody in your local area that has had this issue? Have you spoken to a potential beneficiary about what they're experiencing? Make sure you're really concise. We're not looking for essays at all, but we just want to know why you spoke to them, like what you found out from speaking to them, and how this is and who the person was really. So just thinking about that context. So we've gone from a really broad secondary research. Now, who have you spoken to as a project team? Okay, which will then lead you to the needs assessment and the unknowns. So have you done your primary research and your secondary research, and have you still got kind of some issues that you're not really sure about? You don't know if they're experiencing a certain thing, or like you still got some questions left to answer. So I think that's when we need to start putting in those questions. So again, be really brief, but you need to pop into this area, like, what is it that you still don't know that you need to find out to make sure that your project will be the best solution for that beneficiary and make the most impact on them? So lots of things there. And then from that, you should really have a need. So we would love to know what your social need is and what this issue that you've identified is. So this is your opportunity to really be concise about all of that information that you've just pulled, that you've just explained, and really kind of tackle that big kind of 2 sentences on what it is exactly that the need is and how you've identified that. Okay, and then we need to say what stage the project is. So like we said, it doesn't need to be at impact. If it is at impact, then fantastic. If not, this project like really is an opportunity for all stages, and new projects are really encouraged to apply for this, because Asda are in a position where they'll be able to help you move things forward even faster and have that opportunity to bounce off somebody. So make sure you state really clearly whether it's still in the ideation stage, so brand new, you've just done your needs assessment, or you're working through your needs assessment, because it's absolutely fine if you say, you know what, we've got plans to conduct an interview on this date, but we haven't yet, but these are the questions that we're going to ask. That's great. Again, so you could have identified a couple of unknowns, but you could say, well, I still need to ask in our primary research to double check, but it's good to kind of have filled those and make sure you've really clearly said, I don't have that information yet, but I have a plan to find it out on this date, because that'll help us when we're coming to shortlist to the next stage. Okay, something that you will be familiar with, and we ask all of our projects, which of the UN Sustainable Development Goals are you hoping to address? So you can pick 1 all the way up to 5 on here. That just helps us categorize even further. Okay, and then project impact. So this is your opportunity, if your project already has impact, to let us know what that was, but it's also your opportunity to say, we actually are planning to impact at least 5 beneficiaries, and we're going to do this because we've got a project partner in mind, or we've identified a project partner, or we're already working with a project partner. So making sure that you're being really, really clear on, if this all goes to plan, we want to impact 4 people by the time we're doing the national competition. So lots of things to think about there. Make sure you work with your project team to fill all this information in. And then I briefly mentioned about project partnerships. So the best Enactus projects have really strong project partnerships with people already operating in that area in their local community. So this is your chance to really research, if you haven't already, local charities in your area that are working with your target beneficiary group. Because again, if you haven't conducted that primary research, this is your opportunity to identify that project partner and start to do that. So perfect if you already have. Make sure you use this box to detail who the project partner is. If you haven't got a project partner, pop them down, because we do want to know who you're thinking about, and also let us know what stage you've gotten to. It would be great to hear if you said, I sent an email and I picked up the phone and I rang them and they said that they're gonna book in a meeting with us in 2 weeks. So like, that's the kind of information that we need. And then also project inspiration. So something that I said is to please do have a look at those project resources that I've put on the Asda Partner Competition webpage to give you that inspiration. It might help develop your projects further. Or you might have found something that's operating in a similar place, or maybe in a different part of the country. So make sure you research what is already out there, what inspiration can you take from them, or what you want to alter to make your project a little bit different, a little more unique. So please do put that in there. But as with all the answers, make sure you're really brief about this. Okay, and then the Asda project criteria. This is what we always say, sorry, the Enactus project criteria is what we should say all Enactus projects should follow, and this is what you'll be assessed on in the national competition. And then we get to a really important aspect is the project brief. So we want to know like how your project meets the brief. So especially your needs assessment. So how is your needs assessment going to or has developed into a project, and how that can be facilitated in the Asda store spaces or a green space in your local community. So we want to know, why do you want to apply for the Asda partner competition, how it meets the brief, and how you're using that space or want to use that space. So thinking about that green space, that green land space, or how you're using that, how you want to use the space in an Asda store. So make sure you're really, really clear with that. Bullet points, again, more than welcome. And then something that's really important is, what mentoring would you require? So do you need help with putting a short-term goal, a long-term goal together? Like, do you need a little bit of help in your project intervention plan? Like, how can Asda and how can Enactus UK help you with specific mentoring? Again, like, think about this, delve really deep into this. So something that I see all the time with these applications is quite a superficial thing. So like, oh yeah, we'd quite like Asda to help with business. It doesn't really give us much. Or, oh yeah, maybe it'd be good to have some ideas about social media. Again, it's really, really broad. We want to know what specific mentoring your project needs. So do they need support on delivering this type of workshop? Do you need support on project development? Like, do you need support on project planning? Like, that's the information that they want to know about. Like, how can Asda help you to get to that impact stage? That's what you need to be thinking about. Okay, so we'll next move on to explaining what resources your project might require. So for example, if you were doing a project that was teaching elderly people how to use Amazon Echoes to help them with social isolation, do you need a couple of Amazon Echoes to do a project pilot? Is that something that the funding that Asda give you can support on? So be really specific about what sort of resources. I really would like to encourage you and challenge you to go beyond putting oh, we'd quite like some money to build a website, because it's not really what this project's about. Like, you don't need, well, you might do, but most projects don't need a website to impact that one beneficiary. So always think about what do I need if I needed to deliver this project tomorrow? Like, what would stop me from doing that? And that's a mindset that you want to be in when you're writing what project resources you might require, or what you're planning to spend the funding on. And then the next steps are just understanding of what is expected of you. So like I said, make sure that you tick to say that you understand that if you progress to the next stage, you will be expected to go to Asda House in Leeds, and that's the only way that you can secure the funding. If you don't attend, you won't be able to progress further in this competition. And just a really important one, make sure your VPE and your university advisor are aware that you're applying for this partner competition, because they might be able to provide you with a bit of insight with those competition applications. So it's just good to keep them in the loop. So those are the key takeaways, I would say. Okay, so just moving back to the web page. So making sure you're clicking on the button to do that. When you fill in your Google form, I would recommend having a look at all of the questions, filling it in on a Word document, because that'll help you with that word count, and then uploading that onto the Google form when you're ready and when you've had somebody else to sense check it. So one important thing is, when you're writing your application, make sure you're already thinking about, who am I going to get this to review? Like, it could be a housemate, ideally it will be someone in your Enactus committee, but again, remember that always have somebody to just quickly check through it, because it might make sense to you if you know the project inside and out, might not make sense to somebody with that external mindset. So really do put yourselves in Asda's shoes, because they're the ones reviewing that. So imagine that they know absolutely nothing about the social issue or the project that you're looking to create. And that's a mindset that you need to have. You need to be explaining this to somebody who has no idea what you're doing, and that should really help frame that. So my two main takeaways from this is, remember that this competition is all about the needs and your beneficiary and how you've identified that. So we want to know the thought process that's gone into creating this project. And then the second thing, it's all about how you're going to utilize space in either Asda stores or in a green field that's close to your community. So space that you've identified could be renovated into a community garden, could be a place to hold kind of forestry education classes. So thinking about those things, like, let's really think about how we're meeting the brief in those. So if you have any questions, please do reach out to me. My email address is ccollins@enactus.org, or you can find me on your Enactus team WhatsApp group. So make sure you're checking in there. More than happy to help. But for now, thanks for listening, and we'll leave it there.